The mission is to discover people who actually have principles that are not for sale, who will do the right thing rather than talk about it. I'm sick and tired of people talking about it. I'm tired of seeing tens of thousands of people slide into my DMs and then complaining about how bad things are, and then they do nothing. I'm just tired of it. So, here I stand, I can do no other. If they're gonna kill me, they're gonna kill me.
After the Project Veritas directed evolution Pfizer story hit, a source provided blood specimen samples and sent them to veritastips@protonmail.com. I took screenshots of these, which I kept, and I made sure to leave the source anonymous. This is a photo of a normal, unvaccinated blood sample, and this is a photo of vaccinated blood. As you can see, the vaccinated samples are forming granulations. Even to the untrained eye, something is clearly wrong here. Project Veritas never brought these blood samples to the attention of the public. In my view, this was so fucked up, and I couldn't even believe it was real. These are the blood clot samples that were sent to Project Veritas used in the funeral fund investigation. The embalmer who sent these said he had never seen anything like this in the 10 plus years that he worked.
I'm delighted to welcome Mr. John O'Looney he's a funeral director from Milton Keynes Family Funeral Services Limited. Now, we started talking because we've got a mutual concern about these white fibrous clots that are coming out of the circulatory system of many deceased individuals. So these white clots, just to be clear, the first time you can remember seeing them was 2021, not 2020, and never before that.
No, and I've got so in the 18 years that I've been a funeral director, 7 of those years were spent working for the coroner. So my job was body recovery, and I would recover people in all different various states. And whilst I wouldn't know the Latin term for every ligament and nerve, I could tell you what's normal and what isn't normal. And I've got a BIE registered embalmer who works for me full time, who's done 22 years, and he's never seen them before 2021. No.
Mm-hmm. So some people think they've seen some small ones in 2020, but that's not your experience. It's 2021 they started, midway through 2021.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and
that just happens to correlate with being 6 months after the onset of the some therapeutic intervention or other.
100%. Yeah, that I can tell you. I definitely believe that's what's causing this.
It was not long after I started working at Pfizer that it was being claimed in alternative media outlets that the compound luciferase was being used in the production of the vaccines.
The next part of the delivery system is a luciferase enzyme. Okay, they named it, they patented it luciferase. Luciferase because it has bioluminescent qualities, which means it can produce a light, or it has a light source.
Luciferase is a fluorescent enzyme found in jellyfish and fireflies that produces bioluminescence. This enzyme was supposed to only be used in animal studies for the research of the detection of lipid nanoparticles, or LNPs.
Listen, guys, now I'm really worried. This is where I got the shot, the second shot. Look at this. It's glowing.
Was this from the vaccine? Who can be sure? What I can absolutely affirm to you is that the vials I worked with indeed glowed, and you can kind of see it here.
Hi everybody, my name is Melissa McAtee, also known as Melissa Strickler, the Pfizer whistleblower from Project Veritas. I worked at Pfizer for almost 10 years, 5 years as a quality auditor. Here is my driver's license before I got married and changed my last name. Here is my work badge with my pre-marriage name. Here is the backside to show that it is Pfizer property, and my CDA sticker, which proves that I can deal with controlled drugs. Here's an extremely embarrassing photo of me at work wearing that badge. Here is a product that has the same exact lid color, vial size, and is liquid. It is on the exact same light test table that I always light tested at as a quality auditor. Normal looking solution. Almost all product looks like this. And here is the hokey pokey that they're mandating to people. Notice anything funny about that solution? It's glowing. If you ignore the reflection of my glove here, you can see that this solution is almost totally clear with a very slight tint of yellow on the white side. Here's another one. And here's a really clear image to show you how clear it is. But oop, it goes over to the black side. Same table, same light, same surroundings, same vial. And it changes when it goes in front of the black background. It's glowing.
What kind of a chemical could glow? What
Well,
could make the product glow?
Just from my, research and stuff, I've found that luciferase and graphene oxide can emit glowing.
The other big thing I discovered was with the LMPs. LMPs are supposed to open up and release the RNA, but we're going into the heart, reproductive organs, and other parts of the body. The only problem is that's not supposed to happen. This was recognized and duly recorded by Pfizer themselves. I downloaded 400 pages of documents proving it. I am now only in possession of 2 pages concerning the LMPs, which showed the pharmacokinetic data of the biodistribution of where the LMPs were going. I brought this issue up to a director at Pfizer, Ramin Davari, and he instructed me that the documents and data were confidential and that I was not allowed to show anyone. The remaining 400 pages were left in the hands of the team at Project Veritas.
There's a 9 terabyte file of evidence that Veritas is sitting on from all the recording that I was doing.
During my time inside Pfizer, I obtained a ridiculous amount of footage, and being completely naive, gave all of it over to Project Veritas. Part of the footage that I obtained was from a meeting with Vice President of Biotherapeutics and Pharmaceutical Sciences, Nick Warren. The meeting was called FDA Advisory Committee for Pfizer's COVID vaccines for kids ages 5 to 11. In it, Nick Warren goes on to explain how the buffer system had a minor change during the approval process. Changing this could absolutely affect the stability and storage life of the vaccines.
Thank you, Dr. Gruber. My name is Nick Warren, and I'm in Biotherapeutics Pharmaceutical Sciences. We explored a number of alternate buffer systems to enhance the stability of the RNA LNP product, as well as to allow for lower concentrations to be made available. We have performed an extensive comparability evaluation comparing the 2 formulations and have found them to be biochemically and pharmaceutically comparable. The only change is in the formulation, which is the last step of the product manufacture.
I brought all of this up to Nick Warren in detailed notes when I had my meeting with him the first week of November. Within the first 5 minutes, he said that he had gamed the FDA through lying by omission and by not discussing the clinical data related to this new formulation. I actually had 2 meetings with Nick Warren. In the second meeting, after he admitted that Pfizer had gamed the FDA, I went in with a copious amount of notes ready to drill him on this point. Even writing in the margins the questions, how else can we game the FDA? And don't we tell them what to do? This was bombshell. It was criminal. It was dangerous and insane. Something like this had to be released to the public. They had a right to know, and they had the right to know right now. To top it off, in early 2023, Steve Kirsch, entrepreneur, philanthropist, environmentalist, and founder of the COVID-19 Early Treatment Fund, wrote an article ripping Reuters for fact-checking a claim about a Pfizer whistleblower having provided vials of the vaccine through chain of custody to Dr. Carrie Madej. Who was the fact-checker of this story but Nick Warren himself? With the goal of recovering my original Pfizer story, I started inquiring the team members of PV as to what happened to the footage. The footage was originally on a server at Project Veritas and had been wiped off the server by leadership. On March 14th, I went to a bar down the road from PVHQ with senior producer Mike Villani and Jazz, real name Michael Juarez, who was the insider department head at PV.
Did you guys see the content of, like, with the FDA guy? It was Nick Warren, the vice president, right? Where, like, he says, like, he gamed the system, right? Like, gamed the FDA, basically, like, lied by omission, right? That's what he said. And dude, imagine if my insider story was released.
Villani was the one who cut down all the chain of custody footage with Madej. He saw everything. Here, Villani admits that the footage is secure on a hard drive.
Dude, of the chain of custody, right?
I actually, dude, you know how annoying it is?
Dude, can I ever see that one day?
It's in I had to take it off the server.
It's off the server.
But it's on a drive.
It's on a drive?
So, Villani, quick question. You know how you said that you have that 9-hour footage of, like, when I was an insider? I was curious if you could make a duplicate of that for me and give it to me.
Yeah, so I don't have it right now. Like, I mean, obviously not right now, I'm at a bar, but, like, even at the office, I don't have it because after, like, your story, we were, like, concerned, so we backed it up on a drive that I don't have, and I don't even think anyone at the office has it, but that's where it lives, and, like, there's not a copy on the server or nothing.
Okay. Do you know who has the copy?
It might be our outside counsel, John Lickman. Why do you want just, like...
I've never seen it. I've always wanted to see it.
I want to show you. I just want to, like, watch it with you because it's fucking awesome.
And then I have to type this up really quick. We also have Nick Warren, VP of R&D at Pfizer, saying that they gave the system to the FDA. He admits they used a different formula in the children's vaccine that was the formula they did research and studies on, right?
Yes.
The next clip you'll hear is from the resignation call I made to the Project Veritas COO, Daniel Robert Strack. I asked him where the hard drive and the terabytes worth of documents and footage went.
Bam.
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Good, how are you? What's going on?
I have one quick question for you. I had a conversation with Villani. Obviously, you know, I know the whole situation with when I was a Source insider.
Yeah.
The information that I obtained, it was moved off the server. I was just curious where it actually is now.
With legal.
It's with legal? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Is it with outside counsel or inside counsel?
Outside, why?
Oh, I'm just curious. All right. Well.
All good? Everything else good?
Yeah.
All right.
And I would, you know, it's obviously tough to say this, but I wanted to let you know that I'm resigning.
You are.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I also have the recording of me speaking with Nathaniel, aka Carrot Top, an intern at PV, who eventually went to OMG and was James's right-hand man, who said that Hannah Giles was told to leave the Massachusetts footage alone.
And then she said, she also talked about your footage in Massachusetts. And James said this. She also brought up Bam's footage in Mass. I told her to leave it alone. She said she's being asked about it.
Interesting.
James, you were saying Massachusetts. I still want to get that content again.
I know. I want to publish the content. I just don't want us to go to jail.
The lying to the FDA.
Oh, of just like how this, the story of how your content never made it out when it should have.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sucks. I mean, I don't know. I was just acting in, like, good faith. I didn't even know I was breaking any laws. I was just, like, on a mission.
I know. Don't beat yourself up. I know, but listen, you have to understand the content is dated.
I know. I saw, and what happens if that I don't know. Like, if this, I don't know. It's, the longer you sit on this, the longer it looks bad.
Agreed. And that's why it'll probably never see the light of day as far as the legal opinion. They said, like, this, not to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And look, they're involved with remember the Albert Bourla video not that long ago of them working with the FBI to stop the spread of misinformation. I mean, they're literally just waiting for us to fuck up. Waiting for it. And we would hand it to them on a fucking platter. And I hate to say it. And that's what I said on the call. I was like, I fucking hate to say this, but the content is strong. But I believe the risk is higher now. I really do. And it took hearing the lawyer's comments to, like, really drill that home, because he's like, no, you just pissed off the bear. Like, they're waiting for this. They're waiting for something that they can cling to. And especially you work here. Now that's like, they would love to destroy you and be like, oh, look, so not only did they do that, they, hired him, and then he went and got this other Pfizer story, and, like, this is the guy.
Well,
they would make an example out of you.
I'm just saying, like, who would we give this to that isn't, like, corrupt, that would just be able to...
Nobody's to be trusted with this besides us. There's nobody. Anybody that, if this goes out, you're compromised. And not just, like, if we got something again legally, it'd be completely different if we're willing to burn you. But it's not just burning you. It's, you'll be burned and then tracked down and then deposed, and we'll all be deposed, and then the truth will come out. One ugly way, potentially destroying, all of our, you're in jail, a couple other people in jail. I don't know what to say about it.
The way I look at it is I'm like a whistleblower standpoint, like.
Are you suggesting you're gonna blow the whistle on us?
No, I'm saying, like, I was trying to blow the whistle on Pfizer and then I couldn't.
I know. And you're the most ballsy bro there ever was. And that's why I even told them on the call, I was like, guys, Bam's brave. Like, I know you guys are, I'm just letting you know, if Bam were on the call, he wouldn't be tolerating this part of the conversation well. Because I was like, Bam's brave. That's not, he would sacrifice himself for this. Okay. But that's when we were all like, yeah, but it's like, we don't want that for you. And we also want to continue operating.
I spoke with insider agent at PV and OMG, Jasper, who admitted that the footage is still out there and probably in the hands of PV board member Matt Tiermond.
Just remember, because I care about you and because I care that this could create more danger for you because the Massachusetts tapes are still out there.
The Massachusetts what?
Microscope. The microscope tapes. So,
Where are they?
well, obviously, only, Lord God willing, only PV has them, but there's a big chance Matt Tierman does too.
Interesting.
Matt is a very well-connected fellow, with all sorts of ties in Washington and other places, let's just say. On the 23rd of March, I overheard James and Nightingale talking about the terabyte of data, and quickly whipped out my phone and grabbed a recording of the conversation. You can hear Nightingale mention that me even asking about it was suspicious.
So what did Scott want? I don't want to scare you. He's just...
Scott is just wild.
He's paranoid.
A terabyte
Like,
of data and Lonnie did.
pop your trunk. You're
Because you asked about your content.
Pop your trunk.
Yeah.
Further confirmation that these files were on the server and removed was recorded in the Connecticut Sentinel. The newspaper stated that they had been provided communications between former Project Veritas head James O'Keefe and a PV board member from PV-owned devices and servers. In the exchange, an undisclosed person asks if there was anything important in the M or microscope expose. James O'Keefe is recorded saying, "This is a cut down version of the most newsworthy content." This most newsworthy content is on a hard drive and in the possession of PV legal counsel, and that is where it will stay until PV and their lawyers decide to do the right thing and allow the public to see what I witnessed and recorded. Unfortunately, until then, we can file this under the category of the things you never saw.
Project Veritas will never shy away from exposing the truth to the American public. Our job is never done. Stay tuned.
In February of 2023, the board of directors at PV, mainly Matt Tiermond and Joe Barton, signed a letter calling James out for such things as, I quote, becoming a power-drunk tyrant who pontificates on who we should be exposing.
We, the staff at Project Veritas, are at a crossroads. High-level disputes between our leader and founder, James O'Keefe, and the volunteer board of directors who are responsible for oversight of the nonprofit have resulted in James no longer being here. James is not only the founder of Project Veritas, but the creative visionary of our mission. This devastated us and the audience we exist for. James hasn't resigned, nor was he fired. These events confuse and they hurt us, leaving all of us in a state of limbo.
On Sunday, February 5th, a board member requested my presence at his home. He informed me, quote, "You had nothing to do, James, with this Pfizer story," unquote. Perplexed by this, I took out my iPad and showed him a video of myself confronting the Pfizer executive, which had 11 million views on YouTube. He responded, quote, "But that was after the undercover video had already been done," unquote. I pointed out that the brave journalist, and many of you know who this person is, I'm not going to name anyone, who recorded the interaction was someone that I had to sit down over a year prior, remember, over dinner, for hours, talking off the proverbial ledge, insisting he take the long, arduous road to get the story about Pfizer, and indeed he did.
With the company falling apart, I knew that I was going to need to leave Project Veritas, as it was obvious that James was on his way out and I knew my story wasn't finished. I was offered a role in James's new journalistic firm, the O'Keefe Media Group. It was sort of a gun-to-my-head situation. I either took the job or I was basically out. I decided I needed to continue to have access to James, and my story wasn't finished, so I followed him to OMG.
And that person now works for me, by the way, at OMG. He's the one who recorded Walker. Brave, very proud of him and how far he's come. Doing this sort of work is not easy.
I hope you all appreciate this. 100 days ago, James O'Keefe was experiencing board fights and all that. Everyone knows the story. It's all out there. 100 days later, James O'Keefe is laying shots on target against a $10 trillion company. That's unbelievable. To be able to get the reporters, to get the story out there, I mean, this guy is a magician.
I have been defamed, arrested, raided, and ultimately removed from the organization I spent so much time developing credibility of. We are going to build an army of investigators and exposers. They have awakened a sleeping giant. I'm back. Remaining by my side are a small, tight-knit group of the most elite journalists in the world. Exposing corruption requires standing up to power because power hates sunlight. We are sunlight. Welcome to the O'Keefe Media Group, where we will never be shut down. Because not only do I own it, but you own it too. Support us and sponsor our army of journalists by becoming a founding member today.
This video here is from October 6th, 2021. I had a meeting with my manager, Conwell Gill, a principal scientist working on the vaccine formulation at Pfizer. In this meeting, I asked her if it was okay to give people another experimental injection regarding the booster shots, or if it was a drive for money.
So are we?
But we are still.
Like, do we know that? Like, I mean, just thinking like ethically, like, is it okay to like give people another experimental injection? Like, are we sure it's going to be safe and effective? Or are we just rolling these out because we want to roll them out for money? Like,
yeah, this is a real time data that we are generating. We don't even know. When we started vaccinating people, we had no idea how it's going to look like. Yeah. mRNA vaccines have been there for 50 years, no, but nothing made to clinical. Why? Because mRNA vaccines have been known to have side effects.
Right. But
Moderna has been working on it for 10 years. This is not the new thing, right? But why it did not reach trial was because of all these side effects. We, Pfizer and Moderna, used the emergency and the pandemic to kind of get through it now.
Okay.
But, we didn't, but even CDC noted we don't have
data. So it could
data.
never get FDA approved until we had this emergency, right? Like, we had to try something new. So, but why didn't we try like a vaccine formulation that has been effective in the past, like with egg yolk or something that they used with flu, right? I don't know.
Yeah, so we here did not do it because we already have collaboration with BioNTech on flu before actually COVID happened. So mRNA, so what the story behind we starting on this, because BioNTech guy, Ugur Sahin, the BioNTech CEO, he called Catherine Jensen.
Sahin.
Yeah, he called Catherine Jensen and he's like, hey, I have this technology, but I don't have resources to make it big. So Catherine was like, well, we had a collaboration in place before for flu. So we wanted to give it a shot. It is a new mRNA thing. Nobody knew anything about it. We never had this. Everything is just fresh from last year.
Like learning on the fly.
So it was on a fly. Pandemic, just roll it out. There was no time to think. It was a time to act.
Who Conwell was mentioning in this clip is Catherine Jensen. the former head of vaccine research and development at Pfizer.
I'm Katherine Jansen. I develop vaccines which help millions of people around the world to be protected from nasty and deadly infections. Currently, I'm developing a vaccine candidate to help prevent COVID-19.
In an interview in 2020, Catherine confirmed what Conwell was saying, where she fully admitted that Pfizer was flying the plane as they were building it. This is a huge admission as to the nature of the so-called science that was happening behind the scenes.
The most chilling thing for me was when we walked our dog and we go by the hospital complexes and you see one refrigerated truck after the other appearing in the parking lots in front of the hospitals.
The refrigerator truck morgues.
Morgues, right. It was just chilling, absolutely chilling. That was absolutely fueling the desire to come up with the vaccine no matter what it takes.
This was kind of personal.
It became very personal. I saw this as an enemy.
The virus.
The virus. I took this very personally. I wanted to fight it, beat it, fight it down. It was, nothing else mattered.
I also have the transcript of audio that I obtained on October 28th, 2021, from the former head of pediatric formulations, Bakul Bhatangar, reiterating what Catherine and Conwell were saying, claiming once again that they were building the plane as they were starting to fly it. Conwell then goes on to say that the vaccine was not so effective and says that the mRNA and LNPs are very sneaky.
Only Johnson & Johnson side effect came out quickly, like there was a clot that was happening with Johnson & Johnson's.
Right.
But other than that, mRNA and LNP are very sneaky, I think. We are not still seeing a lot of like huge complications.
She goes on to highlight how the clinical trials completely skipped normal clinical trials and went straight up, all at once, to phase 3.
There are 3 types of trials, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We just went straight up. Right?
Yeah.
We just did this. But this is why it takes 10 years for a vaccine to come out.
Yeah.
It takes years of, observation, blah, 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 1, then 2 and 3. Here we are doing everything at the same time. So everybody is as puzzled.
Yeah.
Nobody has 100, even CEO, Pfizer CEO and even Ugur Sahin won't have answers. Because they are like looking at it, closely watching it. At this point, that's all we can do. And I feel like, it's also becoming a money game. This is where it started. So problem is distribution of vaccines to those populations, to those countries. By the time it reaches there, this vaccine is now not useful.
I'll ask you this one, why are we worried about booster shots over here if we're gonna, shouldn't we be giving them?
Of course, but there's so much of politics, right?
This is Ramin Davari, the pharmaceutical formulation scientist from Pfizer, one of the head honchos of the COVID-19 formulation team. This clip was from October 21st, 2021. Just listen to what he has to say about the safety issues of the vaccine.
My mother called me 2 days ago and said that her therapist's friend told her that her friend took a booster shot and died the same day, I think, in her bathroom. I don't know if it was Pfizer, but
the only booster shot so far has been Pfizer.
So I mean, it must have been Pfizer, and I'm just concerned that she was relatively old. She was 77 apparently, but I mean, it's kind of scary to me.
Well, that's the thing. People die every day.
I think it's something that we should look into and make sure that the boosters are.
People are looking into it.
Yeah.
It's just not our job to look into that.
Yeah.
But there are people within Pfizer, all the political people.
Okay.
And the safety people.
Right.
There are people who are not only looking at that, actually, there are reports that come to Pfizer, zillions of them every day.
Zillions.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think Pfizer gets mad when they don't mandate it?
From a business perspective,
Yeah.
It's just like saying, you think the chips companies, they're going to get mad if somebody says chips is not good for you? Of course.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I mean,
they don't care if people just eat chips all day and die, because their job is
to sell chips.
engineering it the way that I take. No, it's not even selling it. It's for me to take it, basically, right? Because otherwise I won't buy it.
Right.
Yeah. So you
I
forget
see.
about those parts of business, basically. So
Yeah.
they're engineering it specifically for me to take the next one.
Right.
So increasing my consumption and increasing my consumption, guess what? It's going to affect my heart, and I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't eat chips. They're giving out free chips over there.
Yeah.
And I don't eat them because I'm like, I don't want that.
And that's
Give me a free salad.
Once you say no to it, it's very easy.
All of these admissions were from higher ups and people directly involved with the production of the vaccine. While the public was being told that the vaccine was safe and effective, behind the scenes, Pfizer was gaming the FDA and convincing everybody to board a plane that they were building in mid-flight. There were several other stories that I thought were absolutely bombshell that were buried by James and his organizations. Two big ones that I will highlight here are Kim Witzak and Raymond Bouchard. Number 1. This is accidental advocate, Kim Witzak. She is the co-founder of Woody Matters, a nonprofit organization dedicated to advocating for a stronger FDA and drug safety system, and is on the FDA Advisory Committee for Psychopharmacologic Drugs. OMG had me fly to Minneapolis to meet Kim, and when I sat down to dinner with her, she had me in tears. I will let Kim tell her story herself.
Sure. Well, I call myself the accidental advocate because I never chose to do this work, and sometimes our greatest purposes choose us. And I was married back in 2003 to my best friend, my husband of 10 years. On August 6, 2003, I got a call that forever changed my life.
Woody Witzak had a life to be envied.
He's not giving up easy.
A life of adventure, a loving wife, a job as vice president of sales. On August 6th, he was found hanging from the rafters of his garage, dead at 37.
He's a statistic.
His wife blames these. Woody's doctor gave him Zoloft to help ease stress and sleeplessness.
And Woody wasn't depressed. Woody had no history of depression or any other mental illness. Woody had just started his dream job with a startup company and was having trouble sleeping. And so he did, he just did what he would have done, which is like, hey, doc, I'm not sleeping. And the doctor gave him a 3-week sample pack of an antidepressant, Zoloft. And
5 weeks after Woody started Zoloft, Kim got a phone call.
They're like, Woody's dead. I'm like, and I start screaming. I'm like, what do you mean Woody's dead?
This doesn't make any sense.
Kim and her brother-in-law Eric spend days researching the possible link between antidepressants and suicide. Kim says the pill took her husband away.
Intuitively, in every part of my body, I knew there's no way Woody would take his own life. So really, my brother-in-law Googled that night, Googled Zoloft and suicide, and literally we had no idea that in 1991, the FDA held hearings on the link between violence and suicide and Prozac. And at that time, all of the committee members voted, they said, nope, we don't see any, there's no link. Meanwhile, we now get Zoloft on the market. We have Paxil on the market. It gets approved for kids. And that is really the scenario of what was going on in 2003 when my husband died tragically.
Today, she filed a lawsuit against Pfizer. It claims Pfizer knew Zoloft was unsafe
and claims the company had not told Woody's doctor or any doctor about the possibility of suicide.
These documents were all sealed. I mean, they were sealed. Pfizer for many years argued that they were trade secret, but the federal judge in my case looked at it and said, this isn't federal, these aren't trade secrets. You know, the documents that they got out from under seal showed a very, very different story than what we were being told. I didn't realize that even fluoxetine, which is Prozac, in Germany, it initially was never approved for two reasons: lack of efficacy and risk of suicide. That was in the 80s. Pfizer had a Zoloft prosecutor manual that was in their files, that they were helping to create a prosecutor manual. And that was from like 1998. There's a whole history of these medications.
After years of public pressure, in 2004, the Food and Drug Administration finally shattered psychiatry's hype when it ordered its strongest warning, a black box, added to antidepressant packaging, warning parents that the drugs could cause their children to commit suicide.
One of the ones that was actually kept from the public is a side effect called akathisia. Akathisia is like an internal agitation where you just want to like scratch it out of you. You're constantly moving.
Where are you going? Huh? You gonna be okay?
And literally one of the documents that was Pfizer Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Roger Lane, had written an article discussing what akathisia is in a journal that is public. But what wasn't public was the memo that he sent to his sales staff that said the attached journal article may not be suitable for general practitioners. And in that journal article, he said, if a person experiences akathisia, which is that internal like restlessness, quote unquote, his words, death may be a welcome result, because you just want it to end. And so they kept that from GPs. And so this is what I'm saying, like when you saw all this in black and white on their letterhead, this is, and my husband's dead, and you guys knew this? Like, I don't understand.
When I met with Kim in Minneapolis for OMG, she explained to me that she was removed from the FDA Safety Committee vote on the smoking cessation drug Chantix. She was sounding the alarm on the FDA allowing the black box warning to be removed from the drug in 2016. This is the first time that this has happened with any drug ever. Her being removed from the vote was unprecedented for drug safety. This was the video that she showed to the FDA Advisory Committee.
After starting Chantix, I contemplated suicide for the first time in my life.
I woke my boyfriend up in the middle of the night and started physically beating him.
It was like I had no control. I eventually had to be sent to a crisis center.
2 weeks later, my dad was dead from a self-inflicted gunshot.
I had a horrible nightmare that I was lying.
I became depressed for no apparent reason. I thought I might go crazy.
After taking Chantix, I became
paranoid. I began to have suicidal thoughts and incredibly bad.
1 more week.
3 weeks after my son started Chantix, he began acting
After
odd.
we could take his Chantix, I lost my mind.
right up to
I became
bed,
so
turning
anxious
his
and
head,
I
looking
wanted to
around,
commit
looking for
suicide.
Next up, we have Raymond Bouchard.
Human trafficking. You might think it's the type of crime that happens somewhere else, but in fact, it's closer to home than you think. In his book, The Berlin Turnpike, a multitude of dangers facing young people, adults, and families are exposed. Raymond Bouchard is an author, speaker, and human rights watchdog and joins me now. Welcome to Connecticut Style. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, and thank you for having the courage to cover this topic.
In 2012, Raymond started the online campaign Force Facebook to block all child pornography, which garnered 1.5 million followers and 400,000 signatures. His efforts paid off, with Facebook finally implementing practices addressing the problem.
Now, for over 20 years, I've investigated human trafficking across the globe. And in that time, we found an enormous amount of child abuse images on Facebook. Now think of it, for the first time in history, pedophiles didn't need to hide what they were doing. Across language barriers, across borders, across the world, these people were gathering on Facebook, validating each other, enabling each other.
Essentially, in a nutshell, Ray uncovered on Twitter exactly what he uncovered on Facebook a decade earlier: an entire network of human trafficking. James sat down with Ray and ended up creating a well-cut and well-edited video detailing exactly what he found, how he found it, and just the kind of filth that was on there.
Data left me tied up in the woods and told strangers where to find me. Camping with my daughter went great. Well, I just hope that whoever finds her takes good care of her from here on out, because she's not my problem anymore. I've had my fun with her. Plus, my wife just recently gave birth, so I've got a new, fresh toy to play with. All these search terms are allowed. Slave master, and you can see what they've done to the word women here. Worthless, object, mutt, error, nothing.
So Twitter is a vehicle for
human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
No doubt. Now, these are all live. All of these terms I took from posts on Twitter. And you've got nude teen, young porn, and you've got some kind of coded words like petite or teeny, tiny, things like that. But if we click on any of these, let's say teen slut, it just brings us directly to Twitter and all of the posts that have that involved. This girl's been written on, and then of course the services that you can go through. So as I was looking at how human trafficking and child pornography came off of Craigslist, came off of Backpage, where did it go? Even to me, it was too obvious that it might have gone to one of the major social media websites. So as I started looking for where these search terms were allowed, because they're not allowed, even in Google, they're not allowed in any of the meta companies, I looked at Twitter and they just started coming up. And then I started to say, okay, is anyone else doing anybody this? What's their policy? And their policy's pretty open.
Pretty open.
Or they're not following it.
Do you think Elon Musk is aware of this?
I don't know. I don't know how he couldn't be. It's got to be. It's such a. It's so huge on Twitter. It's such a huge part of the Twitter population.
Is Twitter breaking any of their own policies by allowing this to take place?
Yeah, I've looked at their policies. Well, one of the ones is just the non-consensual one. But if you look at their stated policies and then look at their content, they're breaking it all over the place. They're literally ignoring all of their cybersecurity policies. Absolutely ignoring it. And this was happening before Elon Musk purchased the company. And I'm not the only one to say this. There's law enforcement saying it. There's other journalists saying it.
Unfortunately, you never saw this footage. James responded to us as to why he didn't release the story.
Conducted interview, no smoking gun of any substance. Privacy search function can restrict porn on devices if you set it on. He was showing when it was off. His story was, porn shouldn't be on Twitter.
It was a bullshit response. It was actually a huge story. There was a network of filth operating openly on Twitter, breaking their own terms of service, and happening despite who owned the company. So according to James, it was a bombshell story that Jordan Tristan Walker admitted, with no evidence whatsoever, that Pfizer was mutating COVID. And yet, here was an entire network of what anyone with two eyes can see is child endangerment and trafficking, and his response was, no smoking gun. You gotta be kidding me.
Ultimately, I come from Pfizer, and then I come from alternative media, and not all alternative media is bad, but where the mainstream alternative media with James ultimately
comes across as, truth, and then they just sprinkle in a ton of lies.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's controlled opposition, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They were there just to bait everybody that's a whistleblower, and then able to control anything that was coming from the whistleblower. That was their job, and that's still their job. They don't care who they hurt along the way.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
With all my experience in working at both PV and OMG, I knew that James always had the final say on what stories would be released. And looking back, I realized that every story that PV and OMG released were all low-baller stories. Low-hanging fruit, if you will. Jordan Walker was just a director-level employee working at Pfizer. He wasn't the CEO. He wasn't an executive like James would claim. Do you know who was an executive? Nick Warren. David Casamento was just some school superintendent. His stature pales in comparison to the stuff we were revealing in the microscope expose. While PV buried the story on Nick Warren gaming the FDA, they highlighted Jordan Walker and mutating viruses that don't exist. A big fat cow of a story that James continues to milk today.
We go to this restaurant, and again, very quick story, and then I'll make a major announcement. We go to this restaurant in Brooklyn, New York, in the Dumbo section of Brooklyn, and I walk in to say hello to this guy. Hey there. Is this seat taken? What? Hi. You work for Pfizer. My question for you is, why does Pfizer want to hide from the public the fact that they're mutating the COVID viruses?
Is this real life? This is absurd.
Why does Pfizer want to hide from the public that they're mutating the COVID virus?
Oh my God.
You're on video. You're on video.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking about
mutating the COVID virus.
Here?
As far as I could tell, this was the role that James O'Keefe was playing. It was all theater. He was filtering out the gold while peddling lumps of coal. The reality is that the undercover information I obtained in December of 2021, while the boosters and mandates were in full swing, would have blown the whole vaccine agenda wide open. The bombshell material I got was utterly diffused by the celebrated and lauded king of investigative journalism himself. What is my experience with James O'Keefe? He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I became absolutely convinced that James O'Keefe was part of some sort of version of Operation Mockingbird.
And welcome to our video on Operation Mockingbird, the top-secret CIA program that ran from the 1950s to the 1970s. The goal of the program was to infiltrate and influence media outlets in order to shape public opinion and spread propaganda. The CIA used a variety of tactics to achieve this goal, including bribing journalists and editors, creating fake news stories, and even establishing entire media organizations as fronts for the agency. One of the most well-known examples of Operation Mockingbird Mockingbird was the CIA's involvement in the creation of the New York Times Foreign News Service. In the 1950s, the CIA recruited foreign journalists and used them to spread propaganda and disseminate information that was favorable to the agency. The CIA also had ties to various other media outlets, including CBS, NBC, and Time magazine. These media organizations were used as a platform for the CIA to spread propaganda and manipulate public opinion. In many cases, the CIA even had direct control over the content that was published in these outlets. It's important to remember the history of Operation Mockingbird and to be aware of the ways in which the media can be used to shape public opinion and spread propaganda.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Despite its end, the legacy of Operation Mockingbird lives on, and many people believe that the CIA and other government agencies still have a significant influence on the media and use propaganda and disinformation to shape public opinion.
If Operation Mockingbird is still in effect, and if there are journalists working within our media today that are there to distract and deceive us, then James O'Keefe fits the mold beautifully.
In 1977, Carl Bernstein wrote an article in Rolling Stone. It was titled "The CIA and the Media." Bernstein claimed that the CIA secretly bankrolled foreign press services. They were both in English and foreign languages. They provided excellent cover for CIA operatives. These reports led to a series of congressional investigations. They were conducted in the 1970s under the Church Committee.
You know, Carl Bernstein wrote an article about Mockingbird around 1975 or 76 in Rolling Stone. And at that point, I think there were some 400 editors, journalists, from all the largest publications. The New York Times had been compromised. High-level people at those journals were working for the agency or had signed secrecy agreements with those agencies, with the CIA, and at CBS, ABC, NBC, high-level journalists. So today, today that's going on. After 75, when it all came out, during the Church Committee hearings, the CIA promised that it would no longer compromise American journalists. It continued the program to compromise journalists all over the world, and today the CIA is the biggest funder of journalism in the world.
On April 20th, 2022, at Dartmouth College, James O'Keefe gave a presentation entitled, "What is Truth?" During the Q&A, James was directly asked if he thought that there was some version of Operation Mockingbird still going on today.
My question was, do you believe there's some version of Operation Mockingbird still going on today with regards to the Russian-Ukraine war? And there's been some, like RT's been taken down from YouTube. And do you have any opinion on that?
No. See, this is what I don't do. Unlike the guy at Dartmouth, I don't opine on things I know nothing about. I like to keep it to the facts. It's pretty straightforward. And that's why I made that article the basis of my presentation, because it is the problem we have in society.
James claimed to know nothing about Operation Mockingbird and refused to even speak one word about 9/11. One of my associates who I worked with for years, Alicia Nightingale Gamble, just so happens to be the wife of Brian Gamble. Brian, according to his own words, is a U.S. Navy veteran and pioneer of digital warfare doctrine. Brian used to work as a CIO at Veolia Water Technologies, which has direct ties to the World Economic Forum. Brian was also the CIO of the America Project, an organization founded by General Mike Flynn and Patrick Byrne. General Flynn is a lieutenant general and was national security advisor to Trump during his 2016 presidential campaign. Patrick Byrne was the owner of Overstock.com and before 2020 was one of Utah's largest donors to both the Republican and Democratic parties. The America Project's mission is to empower the American people to preserve our constitutional republic and defeat tyranny. After working here, Brian then became the CIO of the O'Keefe Media Group from March 2023 to August of that year. Alicia and Brian Gamble both helped push the QAnon narrative heavily during the elections. Nightingale went under the name Redshift Reality and was openly promoting QAnon gatherings and the movement.
Okay, everybody, say hello to Alicia Gamble. We've got her on today. She's coming out of Florida. Alicia, how's it going? And can you introduce a bit of about yourself to my audience?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Alicia. I like to organize our Great Awakening Q rallies. I organized the event in DC, and then we have an upcoming event in Tampa I wanted to talk about.
Gentlemen, it's Magic Cue Ball.
Even going as far as selling magic cue balls.
I to kind of offset our losses, I came up with a novelty gift to sell at our shows called the Cue Ball, the Magic Cue Ball.
Brian Gamble was also the creator of the Red Pill Roadshow, with Nightingale speaking at these events.
And my special guest today is Brian Gamble, the founder of Red Pill Roadshow. Brian,
what's up, man?
Thank you very much, brother, for your time.
That's what we are, a free speech event. And despite what the media says, I think by now people probably think I am Q. Who knows? But despite what the media says, it's all we are. That's all we ever have been, is a free speech event and a free speech platform for those that have been silenced by the deep state and big tech.
During the so-called riots at the Capitol on January 6th, Brian Gamble happened to be suited up in riot gear, standing near a man who was clearly instigating the crowd.
Voted, and what have they done? They stole it. We want our fucking country back. Let's take it. Let's go!
At the first breach of the barriers at the White House, who was there but Brian Gamble himself?
Directly into the police
line. They weren't very prepared.
No.
I mean, not that I like coming to rush the building, but just having a little bit of security knowledge. They weren't very prepared, were they? We were like, man, that looks a weak spot right there. And then we would say it to ourselves, and then it wasn't 2 minutes later that they're...
What's up, everybody? Brian here. Quick video to drop. Lynn Wood apparently dropped a post about me in Telegram. My phone sounds like a pinball machine. Everybody's letting me know this. Thank you for that. And Lynn Wood, interestingly enough, is asking about me being at the Capitol on January 6th. He has my phone number. So why he didn't just pick up the phone and ask me personally about what I was doing there at the Capitol on January 6th, I find that interesting.
Why was Brian at the Capitol? And why is he dressed in SWAT gear? This is undercover footage of Nightingale going on several meetings with New York Times national security reporter Matthew Rosenberg. In this footage, you'll see that they talk about how January 6th was not that scary, and Rosenberg claims that there were FBI informants in the crowd.
Project Veritas went out and honey-trapped the guy, apparently. Videotaped Matthew Rosenberg talking in private. Now, we have mixed feelings about those kind of tactics, but it's kind of fascinating what Matthew Rosenberg says when he doesn't think people are listening.
I think you could tell how much fun we had in January.
Oh, that's great. Are you allowed to have that much fun on January 6th? Aren't you supposed to be mourning?
I know. So if you're traumatized. But all these colleagues who were in the building, little younger, who's like, oh my God, it's so scary. I'm like, oh, we're the ones, not Fox, not Breitbart, who actually went and uncovered the fact that there were a ton of FBI informants on the people who attacked the Capitol.
Oh, they uncovered that there were, quote, a ton of FBI informants in the crowd on January 6th? I don't remember reading that in the New York Times.
So while Brian Gamble was at the first breach point at the Capitol riots on January 6th, his wife was undercover getting footage claiming that there were FBI informants in the crowd. Once again, you've got to be kidding me. Both Brian and General Flynn have said they did not believe in the QAnon conspiracy, and yet Flynn's family once put out a video announcing the famous Q slogan,
"Where we go one, we go all.
Where we go one, we go all.
God bless America.
God bless America."
and Brian is hosting events promoting it. How did Brian end up working with Flynn and James O'Keefe? Let's just say that Brian rubs elbows with some high-level people in the military, government, and media.
And I've always had a problem with shutting up. It's always been my Achilles heel in life. I can't just shut my mouth.
The CIA claimed that they ended Operation Mockingbird. But did they really?
The military has a name for fake news. It's called IIA Operations, Interactive Internet Activities. The military uses Interactive Internet Activities, or IIA, as the psychological operations nomenclature for a tactical social media warfare program. Department of Defense Information Operations Joint Publications 3-12.2 Psychological Operations dated the 7th of January 2010. It defines interactive internet activities as follows. A. Psychological operations and computer network operations. CNO supports PSYOP with dissemination assets to include interactive internet activities. CNO activities can deny or degrade an adversary's ability to access, report, and process information. This capability supports PSYOP by providing access to digital media within the information environment to reach intended targets. When you watch any social media influencer of any status, always in your mind must be the concept of IIA operations. Limited release or limited hangout, controlled release, suppression, containment, redirection, misdirection of information into meaningless manufactured online issues, arguments and circular dead ends that exhaust and confuse. The aim? To never allow diverse, meaningful information to become direct, meaningful political power and movements at the grassroots level that have concrete effects in the public domain.
The CIA promised that it would no longer compromise American journalists. It continued the program to compromise journalists all over the world, and today the CIA is the biggest funder of journalism in the world.
The only thing I knew anymore is that I didn't know. I didn't know who to trust anymore, and that was the most heartbreaking thing of all. There is the potential that literally everyone that I worked with was some sort of political operative, knowingly or unknowingly. hardest part for me was that I was surrounded by colleagues, confidants, people that I hung out with, had drinks with, had laughs with, and now everyone surrounding me in my life became suspect. Who is compromised? Who is working for who? Who is being played and used? Who is a useful idiot, just like I was, and who is an agent working undercover for some darker agenda? Let's just say, as the smoke cleared from the lies of virology, a dark cloud over my innocence grew.
What is the Bohemian Grove? Well, it's a kind of summer camp for the powerful, an all-male gathering in great secrecy. More from Dennis Murphy.
George Shultz, Henry Kissinger, and West German Chancellor Schmidt arrived by car. The chairman of General Motors and U.S. Steel came in by private jet.
If you would look at the guest list over a period of 5 years, I don't think there would be anybody of any importance in America who was missing from that list.
Cabinet officers and captains of industry are going to summer camp at Bohemian Grove, an all-male retreat secluded in the Redwood Forest 2 hours north of San Francisco. Outsiders are not invited. What's hidden away is a little bit of Boy Scout camp and a lot of fraternity hokum. There are rituals, bonfires, and the burning of effigies. The members live in lodges with names like Wolf and Caveman. Gerald Ford, Henry Kissinger, William French Smith, and George Shultz are bunkmates at Mandalay Camp. A campground statue reminds Bohemians to keep their mouths shut about the Grove.
The Bohemian Grove that I attend, one time at a time, the Easterners and the others that come there, but it is the most faggy goddamn thing you will ever imagine. The San Francisco crowd that goes in there. It's just terrible.
The Bohemian Grove is a heavily restricted 2,700-acre campground in Northern California, where in mid-July of each year, a 2-week encampment of some of the most prominent men in the world meet.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Well, I'm Alex Jones, and I snuck in there in 2000. I'm the guy that blew it wide open and got the video. It's been on national TV.
Well, I disrespect you for that.
You do?
I do.
Thus buried across the shadowy tide, in all the ancient majesty of death, dull care, arch enemy of beauty. Not for thee the tender tribute, or the restful grave. Fire shall have its will of thee, and all the winds make merry with thy dust. Begone, dull care. Fire shall have its will of thee. Begone, dull care, and all the winds make merry with thy dust. Hail, fellowship's eternal flame. Once again, midsummer sets us free.
In June and July, insider agents Clarice Schillinger, Shane Smith, and Julie Trammell had left OMG as they were all having issues with James. Before she left, Julie Trammell had brought up to me that she had found evidence that James was being invited to the Bohemian Grove. James told the team that he was,
"Guys, I will be unavailable, unable to even look at my phone from July 20th to the 27th. While I am gone, I expect this team post every day on my Twitter account, have videos ready to go each and every day while I'm gone. We cannot just go 10 days dead silent."
The very time James was going off grid was the exact week of the encampment at the Grove. Knowing that James was alleged to be headed to California for the secret gathering at the Grove, prior to his trip, I set out to corroborate my story completely as best as I could. On August 1st, I obtained a photo of James O'Keefe's tent slip next to his book, American Muckraker, when I was at his house in North Vale, New Jersey. Carrot Top hooked me up by throwing the tent slip directly in my direction while I was working, and I proceeded to take a picture of it when I went to go to the bathroom. Finally, on August 23rd, James O'Keefe came clean to me and called me saying,
I went to this Bohemian Club and it's upset people. So I just wanted to hear from you and kind of take your temperature and see how you're feeling, see how you're doing, like what's going through your mind.
James, how did you even get invited there? And it's the most powerful secret society in the world.
I feel like my own team is like eliciting me and challenging me and questioning me. And I think I was just a guest. I didn't see anything wrong there. Some of our people that I've known for many years were there. If I saw something, I would tell you, but I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that crossed the line or, anything like that. Some strange things, but nothing like what's portrayed by like Alex Jones or anyone else, as far as I can see. And there's a lot of people that support us that are involved in that. Some people on this team are really challenging me in a fundamental way, and it's really more than I can take right now. So I just need to know, like, are you with me? Are you, and just tell me the truth, like.
Truthfully, James, I can't say yes to that because of everything that we've been through from Pfizer whistleblower to now.
I can't feel like my own team is like investigating me. You have to trust me. It sounds like you're not.
I called James back that day and I wanted to bring up to him more about Pfizer and my story being buried and how this was truly a crime against humanity.
You want to continue our conversation?
Sure thing. James, you advised it, and it wasn't even my decision to go about it this way. It was a manipulative tactic.
I thought about the tape again after the February. I thought about revisiting it, but a lot of people said it's a few years old. It's a little old. It's probably not advisable to do it. Our attorney advised us not to look at that footage. And I think it's important that we listen to our attorneys who are trying to help us and keep us out of trouble. There are certain lines that we just can't cross. Certain lines that I can't cross. I wouldn't advise that you cross.
I mean, it's been a lot, and I was like the golden ticket, Willy Wonka of whistleblowers. Literally, codename microscope. I literally showed people like the nanotechnology in this shot, James, like the bioweapon behind it. Why don't we do an interview together on how fucked up the whole thing was?
Because you just said that I'm trying to extort you, and you've crossed. You can't. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I've been through a lot in the sense that, I come from being the Pfizer whistleblower, right? I wanted to blow the whistle on this bioweapon, and you shut me up.
Right.
You shut me up.
Who shut you up?
You did.
Who shut you up?
I was silenced by you, sir. Regarding Pfizer, how I was a source. Remember how I came to you? Wanted to blow the whistle on the whole thing.
What would cause all of the people, all of your former colleagues, to caution you to release that? Why would they caution you to release that?
Probably because they don't want the truth to get out because of all the powerful information behind it all. It's way too powerful. Such as the Vice President Nick Warren saying he gamed the system, gamed the FDA. Tell me that's not public information. Millions of people died, James, from this shot. The moral, ethical thing to do is bypass these things on paper, written laws, that don't actually matter. God's law is what matters, sir. On July 13th, James and I went for a walk in the woods near his house in Northvale, New Jersey.
You went through what you went through, you got that information, and even if it isn't released, like the video of what you did, like you didn't even write about it, although that might be an issue.
What, the microscope stuff?
Okay. And just talking for a minute about things like I remember when I met you in that restaurant, and I remember like talking to you. I remember thinking, this guy probably thinks I'm a dick.
Gathering and disclosing matters of important information some person or group wants to keep secret. Things that are hidden from public view. And the New York Times said 125 years ago that journalists must operate without being afraid and without being partial. To operate without fear or favor. Have you ever heard? It's on the top of the New York Times masthead. That was in 1896, Professor. Recently, the New York Times editor said, a journalist has to have it in his heart to make society better. Also, to tell the truth, shame the devil. Journalism was defined by one guy, Walter Lippmann, one of the deans of journalism. He said a job of a journalist is to tell the truth and shame the devil. I mean, even he brought spirituality into this battle. This is a fight of good versus evil, as much as it is about truth versus fiction, left versus right. It's good versus bad. So in that ways, yeah, it can be a spiritual war what you're fighting.
I just want to leave one last message to the audience. Truth is love, and love is truth. Thank you for watching my story. Please share it with the world. I do not mean any malice or harm to anybody that is portrayed in this film, such as my old colleagues, Conwall Gill, Ramin Davari, Nick Warren, or my other team members at Pfizer. As a team member of the Pharmaceutical Research and Development Analytical team, I knew that there was clearly something wrong with the vaccine rollout. And I feel that I have blood on my hands from working on this vaccine. In spiritual law, the law is to do no harm. I simply was doing what I was doing because God placed me in a position to help people wake up to the dangers of the COVID-19 vaccine. To the vaccine injured and to those who have lost loved ones to these horrible bioweapons, I am beyond sorry that I faced this mountain of a challenge and that this story is only coming to fruition now. I am a Pfizer whistleblower who was silenced and in the process have uncovered virology to be entirely fraudulent, if not just based on Christine Massey's FOI requests alone. From my own experience as both a highly skilled and meticulous scientist and journalist, I can come to no other conclusion other than that the entirety of virology is a pseudoscience. As a Pfizer whistleblower, I assert the improvability of viruses as one of my foundational arguments. This means that not only is this COVID-19 injection neither safe nor effective,
but that all vaccines and mostly all of allopathic medicine as a whole is one giant fraud. I do not mean any malice or harm to anybody that I worked with to corroborate my story while working at Project Veritas or O'Keefe Media Group. I did what I did because there was a grave injustice done to me, and as this injustice was done to me, ultimately, it was done to the world. The story that I had obtained back in 2021 when boosters and mandates and childhood vaccine approvals were running rampant, this story could have helped increase vaccine hesitancy on a massive scale. As a whistleblower, PV's fraudulent behavior of burying information that was rightfully public knowledge is wrong, plain and simple. What I have done is protected in spiritual law. God is watching me, and he knows that this has been a weight of the world, a psychological terror that I can no longer bear, and I have to share this with the world. In writing, God's law is protected by the Whistleblower Protection Act, False Claims Act, Title 31, USC 3729, where my testimony will be used in support of an investigation to the vaccine safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines, as well as Article 4, the Supreme Law, Clause 2, Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. Regardless of the existence of these protections, we as men and women have a responsibility to do what is right, regardless of the outcome. As James O'Keefe said himself, this is a fight of good versus evil as much as it is about truth versus fiction. It's good versus bad. And as Littman said, the role of a journalist is to shame the devil himself. Well, this is me shaming the devil. This is not about right versus left. This is not divide and conquer. This is about right versus wrong. And I choose God. I choose good. I choose Team Humanity. Raymond Burchard once told me, when you pass on a story like this, you become the story itself. Thank you for watching my story, and may God bless each and every one of you. Justin Leslie, signing off.
You're throwing everything you have at me. Cheap shots, low blows, will you ever let it go? You're so pathetic, give it a rest. You're not gonna win, you're never gonna. Oh, you love the sound of your own voice and the crown of death upon your head. Oh, come on, you and all your royalty on the ads even me. You're going to taste my fist. You're so good at stretching the truth into a sugar-coated lie. Everyone takes a bite. I have been dining with the enemy. It was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now it's so clear to me. Oh, I've had enough of your games. If you're not trembling, you better be. 'Cause we're gonna be the end of you. I've had enough of your games. I'm gonna show them who you are. I can tell you right now, it won't be pretty. I can convince anyone anything, provoking the anger of a jealous God. Still you spin a web of lies, fear, lust, pride, greed, and shame. You said no one, oh you said no one escapes the pain. I've had enough of your games. If you're not trembling, you better be. 'Cause we're gonna be the end of you. I've had enough of your games. I'm gonna show them who you are. I can tell you right now, it won't be pretty.
I went to this Bohemian Club and it's upset people. So I just wanted to hear from you and kind of take your temperature and see how you're feeling, see how you're doing.
I'm a coward, not a before you ever let it go. You're so pathetic, give it a rest. You're not gonna win, you're never gonna.
What is he doing? He's shaking his head and file a complaint. Where's he going?
He's going to jail.
Every time. Every time.